What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and we're back with another 2022 prediction video. It's the Iowa Hawkeyes up next on our list. Iowa coming off of a great year, 10-2. Here are some of the predictions for 2022. The FPI has them at 6.7 and 5.4, so around 7 and 5. Athlon has them at 8 and 4. The over/under a little bit higher; they're at 8.5. So you see these predictions not really agreeing. You're talking about anywhere from maybe 6 and 6 up to 9 and 3. Looking at this Iowa team, it's all about the quarterback. I think they're going to be solid on defense. The offensive line will be strong. They'll be able to run the football just like we always get with Iowa. But if they want to take that next step, they're going to have to get better quarterback play. I don't know that that's going to happen this year. We'll see how it plays out. But that's really what is keeping me from jumping on Iowa as potentially being a top 10, top 15 team. I'm just not seeing it because you got to be able to throw the football in today's game a little bit better. I think the defense in some areas will be very strong again, but maybe see some step backs as well. So let's look at the schedule here. You take a look at it. They'll play, of course, Iowa State in the non-conference, South Dakota State, Nevada, their other non-conference games. Out of the Eastern Division, they'll play Michigan, Ohio State. Also, that's pretty tough. Rutgers, you get a break there with Rutgers, but Michigan and Ohio State make for a very tough Big Ten conference schedule. They'll open up with South Dakota State. I've got this as a win. Don't really see them having too much trouble there. This is a good FCS team usually, South Dakota State. Now, don't really follow the FCS all that close, but this is a game that could be close for a little bit. But I think Iowa, with their defense, they'll make some plays. And, it's going to be about turnovers. We saw that last year. When this team is forcing turnovers, they are really, really good, even without great quarterback play. And if they can do that, we should see them get off to a really good start like they did last season. I don't know if it's sustainable for an entire season, just like we saw with last year, even though, they did finish 10-2 in the regular season. So I give them a win there against South Dakota State. Then you have Iowa State coming up next. Iowa has really kind of owned this rivalry. They're playing at home. Iowa State, I think, is going to take a step back this year. They really lose a lot. It'll probably be a close game because it's a rivalry, because I don't think Iowa is really a team that's going to blow a lot of other teams out unless they do, get a lot of big turnovers, maybe some defensive or special teams touchdowns. So I think this game probably will be close, but I'm going to go with Iowa. I think they get the win over Iowa State at home. Then they'll play Nevada. Pretty good team out of the Mountain West. Not a game you're just going to chalk up as a guaranteed victory, but Iowa is the better team. Their defense will be good enough to get the win there over Nevada. I've got them starting off 3-0. Their next game is against Rutgers. Rutgers, an interesting team. You kind of like the direction that program is going, but they did lose a lot from last season. I think that they're not going to drop back into being what they were a few years ago, where they were just really the laughingstock of the Big Ten. They'll be competitive. This game is on the road, but I think Iowa, again, just too good. I think they will get it done there on the road at Rutgers. Not a blowout, but not a one-score game either. I think they win it by at least a couple of possessions. Then they'll play Michigan on October the 1st. Big game. A lot of people circling this one. You go back to last year's game in the Big Ten Championship. Michigan really dominated. I know Iowa kind of hung around for a little while, but Michigan was clearly the better team. I don't think Michigan's defense, though, is going to be as good as it was last season. I think the offense might be even better. And, again, this is going to be a good team. But Iowa, it seems like every year, they always have that one game where they play really, really well. Not necessarily saying it's against a big-time opponent, but there's always that one game. They've done it against Ohio State last year, against Maryland, in what we thought was going to be a big game. They wound up blowing them out. And there's always that one game where they just play a great game. And I think this is it. I think this Michigan game is a huge game for them. Revenge factor from the Big Ten Championship. They've got some confidence after starting 4-0. I don't see them blowing Michigan out, but I do think Iowa pulls off the upset at home. Probably a night game, crazy environment. I think that's enough for Iowa to pull off the upset and beat Michigan. Then they play Illinois. So you're coming off of a big win over Michigan, and you've got Ohio State the next week. Perfect spot for a letdown game. An Illinois team that's not going to be great, but they're going to be a desperate team. They're going to be fighting any chance they have at getting a win. If they're in a game, they're going to do everything they can to find a way to win. a few games next season, and I think they pull off the upset. So I've got them beating Michigan, but then having a letdown on the road at Illinois. So they upset Michigan, and then they are upset by Illinois the next week. Then you have Ohio State. Good news is you get a bye week before that game. Bad news is it's on the road, and it's against a really, really good Ohio State team. I don't think they're going to have the offense to keep up with the Buckeyes. I've got Ohio State winning this one pretty easily, honestly. So 5-2 the record going into that next game against Northwestern. Northwestern, I think, will be better than they were last season. Two well-coached teams here. It should be a really good game. I think it'll be competitive. Iowa, though, home field advantage might be the difference, and I think they are the better team. Going to go with the Hawkeyes there to beat Northwestern, and that puts them at 6-2. Next game on the road at Purdue. Should have a high-powered offense. Defense, maybe not so much for Purdue, but that, it's going to come down to what Iowa can do on defense. Can they make some stops? Can they get some turnovers? They're not going to win a shootout against Purdue. This will be a really good game, I think, but I'm going to go with the home field advantage. I'm going to go with the Boilermakers. I've got Purdue beating Iowa, and that's going to drop them to 6-3. Next game is against Wisconsin. Just look at the schedule here, how it sets up with these 5 big division games in a row. Northwestern, Purdue, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Nebraska. Those 5 games are going to determine, where Iowa stands in that division. They get Wisconsin at home. I think Wisconsin is going to be very similar to Iowa this year. Really just waiting on some good quarterback play. This will be a great one. I think it'll be a very close game, competitive, low-scoring game. Iowa playing at home, that's the difference. I'm going to go with that home field advantage again here. I think they beat Wisconsin. Then they'll play Minnesota. Next game is on the road against a veteran Minnesota team, a team that should be, I think, and I've said this if you watch my videos, I think this division is wide open. I think Iowa has a chance. I think Wisconsin has a chance. I think Minnesota has a chance. I think Nebraska has a chance. I think Purdue has a chance. I wouldn't even sleep on Northwestern. I think they could surprise. I don't think they're quite in that category with those other 5 teams, but you never know. But again, these games are basically toss-ups, and usually when it's a toss-up, I'm just going to go a home field advantage. I'm going to go with the veteran Minnesota team at home to get the win here and knock Iowa down to 7-4. Final game of the season will be against Nebraska. Should be a good one. Could be a game that potentially decides the Big Ten West if all the teams beat up on each other and they've all got 3 or 4 losses going into that final weekend. You never know. It's going to be, I think, tough for Iowa to get to the Big Ten Championship with already 4 conference losses, but still, they might still be in it. I think it'll be a great game. Nebraska, I think, will be better this year, although I think they were much better than their record last year. But again, when you look at these games, Purdue, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Nebraska, they're all toss-ups. I think all these teams are pretty even. They all have their strengths. They all have their weaknesses. I'm just going to pick the home team. Sorry if that's boring, but that's what I'm going to go with. Iowa beats Nebraska, and then I've got this team finishing 8-4 in the regular season.